thing. And I have to say, looking at Saudi Arabia, I am very pleased. Usually you saw when the oil price went down, they had the right economic policies, the oil price went up, out went the economic policies. This time there's enormous discipline. I think Salma is doing a fabulous job. But if you look at that, how would you look at that? And how do you feel about the geopolitical tensions where you sit? Because again, Europe looks at it in one way, and not everybody in the Middle East looks at it the same way. We look at it a little bit different. So I'm handing over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, let me say to Mr. Mohammed Al-Atrabi, Mabruk. And we are very happy at Union Arab Banks to have you the chairman. And I'm sure that he's a very solid banker and he will contribute to the Union Arab Banks during his terms. Number two, there is one thing I want to mention it before I go and on answering your questions or your remarks. In 1986, a bank which was created by Mr. Abdullah Saudi, which is a famous banker in the Middle East. He created most of the Arab banks outside the Arab world. And I'm sure that many of you know him. He's from Libya. He created a bank in ABC, which is, he created a bank in Bahrain, which was called Arab Banking Corporation, ABC, with $1 billion capital. At that time, 1 billion capital, it was a very big, this is in 1980. And it was owned by 3 governments, UAE, Kuwait, and Libya. Mr. Saudi was the famous banker. He decided in 1986 to acquire a bank in Germany. And he acquired a bank in Germany. It was, at that time, the bank was called, or was changed the name from Richard Dawes to ABC Dawes. And the bank still, it is operating. It is focused on the trade between the Arab world and Germany, because Germany is a very important partner to the Arab world. In 2014, at that time I was the president, group chief executive of Al Barakah, I decided to open a digital bank in Berlin. And the digital bank was focused on providing all Islamic banking products to people in Germany, especially the Turkish, because there are about 3 million Turkish people working in Germany. We provide with them the Islamic banking through the digital. And I have to admit, after 2 years, we were able to break even and start looking for a profit. And we were thinking to duplicate this experience in the rest of Europe. But unfortunately, COVID-19 came and it delayed the whole thing. Although that, as Mr. Wissam mentioned, I created 2 banks in London, which was the Islamic Bank of Britain, this is a retail bank, and European Islamic Investment Bank, which is a wholesale bank. This is just to tell you that from 1986, we were thinking, at that time I was with ABC for 20 years, we were thinking, or Mr. Saudi was thinking seriously, to have the head office of the Europe of ABC located in Frankfurt. But there was a debate over it, and then we decided to locate it in London. Well, now it's going back to Germany because with Europe is back, most of the banks is now moving to Frankfurt. And I was very happy to see that that Germany has pushed the data information and everything to a very good level. Now, coming back to your questions. People, they think that the price of the oils will generate a lot of profits for the Gulf country. This is partially correct, but I have to admit that with this increase, we got also the inflation coming to us. Goods is becoming very expensive, and furthermore, the customs and the bringing goods from Europe and from Asia is becoming very costly to the Gulf countries. Why? Because also the owner of the ships and the business is starting to rethink about their futures and their strategy. Therefore, although that from one side we are getting a very good price for the oil, but on the other hand is the inflation is coming. This will correct the cash flow of the Gulf countries, but it will not give them the benefit of getting what they want from that excess in the increase of the oil price. It worked for us as a Gulf. It opened the door for the Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, to reopen their projects which was kept on the shelves, to start it because of the cash coming in. They say that, okay, now if the cash is coming in, let us spend it in many of the projects which was put on hold. I believe that we are benefiting, as I say, but also I want to put it that with the positive side, you should not also ignore the inflation, which it's not just hurting us, it hurt everybody, including the European countries. The price, we don't like to see the price of the oil going above the 100. This is my personal opinion, because you will have it as inflation. We want everybody to work nicely with a very good price of oil. And that's why Saudi Arabia took a very good initiatives to make sure that they balance between the increasing of the oil price and their protections. And this is a credit we have to give it to Saudi Arabia and also to the Gulf countries. I have to admit that we went through too many crises, and we should not be afraid. Crises always open doors for new opportunities. Okay, and I think that we were talking in the morning about, we saw myself, Sheikh Mohammed, and most of the bankers, we saw the interest rate at 20% in the beginning of the 80s. If it go close to 10%, so that's something which is acceptable to us. Once again, I have to tell you that we are benefiting from the oil price, but also we have suffered the inflation which hurt every countries worldwide. Thank you.
Well, I'm very glad you put this in perspective, because that's something that, you're very right, that's something that one doesn't really see. So that there is always, there's the blessing, but there is the thing that keeps the blessing back, and that's the inflation. And I think that's a very, very pertinent view. And well, I was also glad that you mentioned in the projects that are being financed again, because COVID was hard. COVID was also hard in GCC countries. I mean, remember there was the 21st of April when WTI turned negative. Oh my God, we all were on tenterhooks.